Alright, so here's a good transitional story. Returning Home by Kate Rayearth. This is a Pokemon story I read relatively recently on the channel, so as I'm going over it, obviously there's spoilers. I very much recommend that you listen to it first. But anyway, the big takeaway lesson from this one, and there's many, but I thought the best was, evil succeeds unless good men act. Big takeaway there. So, this starts out as any typical Pokemon episode, only instead of in the middle of walking in the day, it is waking up in the morning. In Pokemon, they tend to, sleep out in the wilderness, sleeping bags, what have you. And Misty wakes up, noticing that Ash's sleeping bag is empty. And this is, I think, around the time of the Johto journey or something. So, Ash and Misty are, 13 years old, Brock's 15, I think. And Pikachu is concerned because he was awake before Misty and he doesn't know where Ash is, and, Misty's like, huh, that's weird. Well, he'll probably show up pretty soon. And then he doesn't show up, and she alerts Brock, and Brock's like, huh, that's odd. Well, I'll make breakfast, and if he's not back by then, we'll just do a more thorough search. Well, long story short, Ash is gone. They look for him for hours, they start yelling until their voices are hoarse, Misty starts to get really nervous, and it's to the point that she starts doing these little behaviors. She'll dig her nails into her palms, she'll start biting her lip, just all these little things that one normally doesn't do until, they're reacting to some sort of stress. So it's a really good observation on how people typically are whenever they're going through a hard time. So after days of Ash missing and the police being called and Ash's mother actually coming in, showing up for the final reports and whatnot, their helicopters going through the woods, they're searching for a body at this point. And they find one. And it is so bloated and out of proportion that they can't even tell whose body it really is, though they assume it's Ash's. So this body, supposedly fell in the river and drowned. And so, it's like, okay, we don't know for sure, but we could use dental records at least, and whatever. We determined it's Ash, he's dead, it's a tragedy, but these things happen from time to time. So, obviously Misty is devastated, and the next time the book picks up, a year has passed. Misty is now 14 and a half years old. Since the discontinuation of her journey, she's back at home with her sisters in the Cerulean Gym. And we don't really see how her early episodes were whenever she was still fresh and recovering from the memory of Ash being all that's left to her. But she's doing all right at this point, now that she's had some time to heal. She's doing a better job of keeping the gym in shape and battling gym trainers, those who seek the Cascade Badge, than her sisters ever did. So obviously she's getting her life back together. But every now and then, there will be these times where the sudden pain of Ash's loss still comes back upon her, and she feels guilty. Sometimes it's like, what if I were awake whenever Ash left, or was there something I could have done to intervene? What if only, if only. It's that irrational thing where you blame yourself even though there was nothing you could have done. We're all probably going to be there at some point. And when our minds are working better, we will be able to acknowledge, okay, yeah, my mind... You're on a lower rung of intelligence whenever you're under that much stress and you're that worried and whatnot. You're not operating rationally. So that irrationality does come back, and it continues to haunt and torture Misty from this time and that. And she's got this even sort of survivor's guilt, her not grieving at some point makes it all the worse when she is grieving, because she thinks she's sort of betraying Ash's memory by putting him aside so she can move on. Alright, I've lingered on that long enough, but Kate Rayearth, that's a huge theme in her story, recovering from loss. And then comes the fateful night. Well, early morning. She's wakened at 4 or 5 in the morning, before the sun's properly up. or even up at all. She hears some sort of phantom knock in her dream. She wakes up out of it, she goes to get herself a drink of water from the kitchen, and then she hears the knock again, and she realizes, oh, this isn't a dream. Somebody's actually at the door of the gym. What is going on here? And her sisters aren't there. One of them, like, won a trip or something from a contest, and so she's alone and sort of by herself in the quiet of the house, and that's fine. She can handle it. But she goes to the door and opens it up, and there is Ash standing on the doorstep, and he's very thin and dilapidated, but nevertheless, he's alive. And he sort of like looks meekly up at her, is like, hi. And just her world is about to fall apart. Like, her brain is just, it's not functioning in that moment. She thinks that she's sort of having a mental breakdown, which, honestly, pretty rational thing to think, all things considered. Like, no, there's no way this is real. I have had a year now to cope, and so this is my mind doing some last trick on me. But nevertheless, Ash is alive, and he's actually bleeding on the doorstep a little bit. And so she unloads on him for just a few seconds, like, hi, after all this time? Hi's all you could say? We buried you. It's like, how can... You better have a damn good explanation for this. And so she brings him in after noticing that he's bleeding. After giving him a little bit of first aid, she notices, like, when he has to take off his shirt so that she can, like, patch him up, she sees some scars on his back. Apparently from whips, though it wasn't just whips. There are other scars. Scars all over his body. It turns out that, yes, actually, Ash did have a damn good reason for his absence for a year. He was kidnapped by Team Rocket. Specifically by his father, Giovanni, the head of Team Rocket. And this is a very popular theory amongst people. We know that red-haired dude, Kamen, from Gold and Silver, the rival, he is absolutely Giovanni's son. However, it never really gets said in the anime or anywhere who Ash's proper dad is. And so popular fan speculation is, well, it's Giovanni, and that's why his mom never really wants to, call him out by name. And, the people at Pokemon Company, like the inner circle, they know darn well that the fans are speculating on who Ash's dad is, and they are determined to just blue ball us until the end of time on that one. Anyway, so this is a story that touches on that theory. And so Misty is horrified, obviously, and Ash is sort of worried that Misty is going to judge him just for having Giovanni as his dad, the head of Team Rocket. And her immediate first response, obviously, is not going to be blame for him as he expects. Rather, she says, well, let's call the police. Let's get you as far away from this organization as possible. Let's make it so they can't touch you ever again. And Ash says, no, you don't get it. They own the police. Well, they don't own the police, but they have people in the police. Like Giovanni, he's got a lot of connections. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. I don't know if it's a meme or a political cartoon or whatever, but it's the octopus that has its tentacles basically in every part of the world. So pretty much anywhere you can think of, there is a good possibility that there's some sort of Team Rocket agent. Few Team Rocket agents just planted there, just being Giovanni's eyes, if nothing else. So, if they blab to the police, Giovanni will silence them and make it all go away. And by them, I mean Misty, and anybody else that Ash goes to, because it turns out that Giovanni wants to train Ash to eventually take his place as the head of Team Rocket. He waited for a long time. When Delia Ketchum eventually found out that Giovanni, at the time, was a Rocket executive, she broke up with him, but she was already with child by then. And Giovanni just sort of let it go, and didn't have anything to do with the family for 13 years. And then, when Ash was just about at the age where he was an actual really decent Pokemon trainer, that is when he decided, okay, it's time. Let the grooming begin. He kidnapped his son, put him inside of a prison in his Team Rocket complex, and he waited Ash out. You know, for the longest time, Ash, obviously being like a hero, a character, said, I'm never going to join you. I'm going to resist you to my last breath. And Giovanni, whose smile does not falter, just says, we'll see about that. He's done probably a whole bunch of, I don't know, psychological torture on people and physical torture, and he has broken them down to the point that either they lose their sanity or they eventually swear fealty to him. And even then, Ash, he takes a month or maybe even a couple of months to eventually break, but after so many beatings, after the endless torture, eventually Ash gives in. He can't help it. He's a 13-year-old boy. Like, you know, you're not going to be able to win against this absolute force of evil in the world. And so eventually Ash just says, yes, okay, fine, I'll do whatever you want, just stop the pain. And I said it in my review, my initial review of this story, but there's the story 1984 by George Orwell, which has a pretty good quote. In the face of pain, there are no heroes. No heroes. Now, there are exceptions to that, I'm sure, but the exceptions prove the rule. So, Ash, by no real fault of his own, like, it's almost inevitable that he eventually gets incorporated into the system. But even then, Giovanni, he's under no false illusions that Ash actually is coming over to the dark side for good. He makes sure whenever he sends Ash out on missions to do stuff, that there are always Team Rocket agents with him, making sure that the job gets done and making sure that Ash has a key part in it. If he does what he's told, then, you know, he doesn't get beaten, and he gets treated slightly better. And, you know, if he resists in some way or another, well, there's not much carrot, it's mostly stick. But with carrot and stick, like the stick, if it's bad enough, like, you'll just do as you're told and that's that. Anyway, so that's why he has all this webbing of scarring all over his back, and that's why he is so paranoid when Misty says, we gotta go to the police about this. No police. I just gotta find somewhere to hide where I'll just never be found again. Ash realizes, by the way, that it was a mistake to go to Misty. There was a moment when he saw an opening to get away from his Team Rocket overseers, and he took it. Like, him getting away was a minor miracle in itself. But he knows that Giovanni has enough eyes everywhere that there's no way he's going to be allowed to keep running, and anybody that he gets in contact with is... It's like he's a rat spreading the plague. Like, every person that he meets up with, especially former associates, they're going to fall under the evil eye of Giovanni, and they will be dealt with. So he knows it was a mistake coming here. He knew it from the start. Nevertheless, after just a year of being in the darkness and the pain and the evil of Team Rocket, he needed to see a friendly face. He couldn't help it. So, anyway, he decides after Misty's given him something to eat and his bandages are somewhat healed, alright, well, the only proper thing to do is to hit the road again. And Misty is like, no way, I'm not having this. Now that I finally have you back after losing you or thinking I've lost you for a year, I am not losing you again. You stay here, and if you try to run, I will send my Pokemon after you. I will catch you and drag you back myself. And it's almost the same as how Team Rocket threatened Ash. Like, if you try to run, we will find you and drag you back. But, you know, obviously Misty's got the actual good intentions. Like, there's almost nobody more on Ash's side than Misty is. Maybe Pikachu, maybe his mom. Speaking of which, Misty says, look, we gotta tell other people about this. We can't not just tell others that you're alive, and maybe these other people can even find some alternate solution if the police are a no-go. So, you know, Brock obviously is another one who is very much on Ash's side. So Ash gives in. He doesn't really have the strength to do anything else at this point. The thing is, he's been running for a couple of days now with a wound that every now and then it'll open up and start bleeding again. So all he really can do is catch some sleep and hope that Giovanni's goons don't immediately swoop in on the cerulean gym in the middle of the night or just out of nowhere. He's got that paranoia, and he is proper in his mind to think that they could arrive at any moment. What a terrible world to live in, you know, and that's the other reason that I like this story so much, because we who live in an ideal society, not a perfect one, but an ideal one, we can sleep at night knowing that we're relatively safe, knowing that we at least have the right to own a gun to defend ourselves, or we can have police who are not in the pocket of anybody but are simply lawfully neutral. If somebody breaks into your house, you can count on police to show up and arrest these guys, which is more than you can say in, I don't know, freaking Zimbabwe or whatever. Anyway, it gets you thinking about these other places in the world where this sort of stuff actually applies. If Ash had not been the boss's son, obviously he would not have nearly this much scrutiny, nor this determination to get him back come hell or high water. But that's the scenario that Kate Raworth has painted. Giovanni wants Ash, and he will have his way. His way is adamant. It's not a matter of if, but when in Ash's mind, unless he can somehow find some miracle hiding spot. Anyway, Misty thinks that Brock can help, because Brock has been the rational one thus far. Whenever Misty was breaking down at the beginning, even before determining that Ash was dead, she was constantly worrying and out of her mind and screaming even when it was no use, calling for Ash, even though there were a bunch of people in helicopters, search parties all over the place. Brock, in the meantime, was the one suggesting solutions and keeping his head and making sure that they didn't neglect to feed themselves. So Brock gets there, he finds out about Ash's story, and while they're thinking of what to do, it occurs to them that Jesse, James, and Meowth, I nearly said Team Rocket, but I want to make sure that there's a distinction between them. It turns out Jesse, James, and Meowth did not have anything to do with Ash's kidnapping. I neglected to mention this, but there was a brief episode while they were looking for Ash where the trio pop out in an attempt to kidnap Pikachu, and Misty immediately jumps James and starts strangling him. It's like, where is he? Give him back! And they're so sure that Jesse, James, Meowth captured him, and they are just completely confused. And by the end of it, they sort of part cordially, and Jesse's even a little more gentle. She's like, look, if we see him, we'll make sure that we let you know. So when they eventually see if they can find out if Jesse, James, Meowth know anything as Team Rocket insiders. It's a stretch. Ash doesn't really trust them, but Misty and Brock do, to the extent that they're willing to call them over. Like, Jesse and James even made some like cookies and little "we're sorry, feel better soon" sort of munchy gifts. So it's clear that those guys, they are not Team Rocket proper. They're such failures anyway that it's hard to believe that Giovanni keeps them on his payroll. Maybe he's just not really aware of them because they're such small fries. But they come over, and after a while of thinking, they say, all right, we can't help, but we might be able to contact somebody in Team Rocket who might be interested in making a deal. Somebody who's not satisfied with Team Rocket as it is, and they might have meant to get out, or maybe they have some score to settle with Giovanni, but we might know somebody, so we'll arrange a meeting. And in the meantime, Misty still thinks that Ash should tell his mom, visit his mom, because of all the people in the world, she most has the right to know that he's alive. And Ash is still in the mindset of, every person I get in contact with is one more person on Giovanni's hit list. The narrative has already gone out. It's been out for a year. Ash Ketchum is dead. There is no more Ash Ketchum. If he should now undermine that narrative, the more people he talks to, the harder it is to undo, but it can be done. It's just that there will be all the more hell to pay for it. So Ash is like, he's really hesitant. But, you know, he's still human. He still wants to see his mother. So he again reluctantly goes along with Misty. And so they go over to Pallet Town. They take the Team Rocket balloon, like James takes them while Jesse and Meowth do their contact stuff. And it's at this point in the story that I think Kate Raworth, who is already a brilliant writer, really shines the most. Like, this is where, when Ash's mom comes out and she sees him, like, Kate Raworth describes her face as like, there's some sort of change in it where it's like she's aged over the past couple of years way more than she should have, and you can sort of see the lines that have been created due to Ash's absence. Did I say couple of years? I meant 1 year, but it feels like it's been several years of aging. And like, something breaks in her. I can't do it justice. If I had the words in front of me right now, I would read it, but that's the part of the story that I think I like the best descriptively. So after like a tearful reunion on her part, his tender heart has been so replaced over the past year by the influencing and the molding of Giovanni's Team Rocket that he's almost incapable of feeling at this point. Very little besides paranoia and rage and, I don't know, there's still that little spark. You know, he hasn't been snuffed out yet. If he'd stayed in Team Rocket much longer, it might have been that Ash just went over the edge and that was it. His soul is gone beyond... I mean, it still probably could have been brought back, but there's a little bit of soul left. And so he is almost happy to see his mom, but he can't quite make the connection properly. And his mom, in the meantime, is feeling enough for both of them. And so when Ash tells the story again, he knows enough to sort of smooth the edges a little bit. And he wants to know, Mom, did you know anything about this? And his mom didn't. She thought, she was so convinced that Giovanni was finally leaving them alone that when Ash finally was kidnapped, there she goes blaming herself. You know, Misty was doing it, well, so was Mrs. Ketchum. And so when Ash finally asked to go to his room and be alone, Mrs. Ketchum, like, she breaks and she throws up in the sink and she's struggling to control herself. It's heartbreaking to read, but it's exactly the sort of reaction that, you know, you'd expect out of a loving mom. So Misty, who obviously is touched by all this, makes a promise to Mrs. Ketchum that they're gonna have to go. Ash can't stay here, because Giovanni obviously is going to look in this place too as he's trying to find Ash again. But she'll make sure that nothing happens to him this time. She makes that promise. And this happens in other media too. Like, I think of Maze Runner, Thomas promising Chuck that they're all going to get out of the monster-infested maze alive. Like, all I can say is don't make promises that you can't keep. You know, if you're going by the Bible, don't swear by anything, neither heaven nor earth or anything. Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. No need to say I promise. But anyway, it shows Misty's determination, at any rate. So, Misty briefly catches Ash later that night, looking out the window, still paranoid, wondering, I know that I'm being watched, it's just weird that he's not jumping me. So, Misty's like, maybe you really did escape from him. No, I didn't. So anyway, they leave the Ketchum residence, and they're off to meet the Team Rocket contact, which turns out to be a lady whose name we never find out, a little old lady named Mrs. R. And Mrs. R is like a pretty hardened person for a little old lady. I think in the review I compared her to Margaret Perengoski. Is that... whatever, the lady from Halo who's pretty much in charge of the Black Ops. Or Master Genkai from Yu Yu Hakusho. Very old reference. Spooky old ladies, in other words. I'm sure that the archetype could be brought up elsewhere as well. So She is small fish, a little bit larger than Jesse and James, but not much. She's in charge of erasing records in the police department where she's planted. And the thing is, she's not satisfied with working in Team Rocket any longer. She's getting on in her years. She meant to leave at some point, but when she told Giovanni of her intentions, he simply showed her several pictures of her children and grandchildren, and basically blackmailed her, like, if you try to leave, your family will pay the price. You are mine. You will forever be mine. And, you know, he doesn't say it, but it's clear as day what he's getting at. So, Mrs. R thinks that if she were to help Ash hide from Giovanni, she's got a safe house, she could get something pretty good in return for that. Well, what can Misty and Brock really offer? They're gyms. Those are relatively safe places where other people dissatisfied with Team Rocket can get together, sort of make small-term plans. They can't do anything in the immediate. Giovanni's too powerful for that. Anything they do to undermine the organization, it's gonna take a while. It will involve getting steadily more people together. But at least having the foothold of a meeting place like a gym, it's a start. So that's what she gets. Ash gets a safe house, and Mrs. R gets somewhere safe to have Team Rocket meetings. Ultimately, they agree to it, though Ash is still very distrustful. But at this point, what choice does he really have? He can either go away by himself and hide somewhere, or trust to the safe house protections of Mrs. R. And with his friends, they elect to do the latter. They eventually get to the safe house. There are two kind of shady Team Rocket members who are... they're undercover, supposedly. They're supposed to be with Mrs. R, so despite being Rockets on the surface, they are sympathetic to her. So they bring Ash into the safe house, into the basement, and there's canned food, there's plastic fake plants. He's gonna be down there for a long time. There's no contact to be made with the surface, other than the occasional one-way radio transmission, or I forget how she put it, but it was a radio transmission that can't be picked up on by any normal means. But otherwise, Ash is about as safe and protected as he could be. But Misty and Brock want to stay in the safe house for a couple of days. You know, Ash is paranoid, and they just want to make sure that this really will be okay. It's going to be a long time for him to be by himself down there, and so they don't want him to be isolated, at least at the beginning, and they want him safe. So they spend a couple days with him, and in the meantime, Ash sort of reminisces about his time in Team Rocket, or at least we get some inside information. The time when the Rockets, they stole an Eevee from this rich man, and it was a shiny Eevee, so that's why it was wanted, and they ended up killing the man, but also kidnapping his young daughter in the process. And then I think she got punished because Ash used that as an opportunity to try to escape, and it didn't work. And then there was this other time where Dragonair, like, blew up half of the building while they were trying to capture it, and I can't remember the details, but whatever. There was a bunch of times where Ash had to do things that he wasn't proud of, and it was shown how futile escape was. When he tried to run one time, he kept a Pokemon on him, and the Pokemon had a tracker, and so that's how they were able to find him. And then another time, let's see here. The time that he had to whip a guy... Oh, yeah, so there was this guy who was supposed to be helping out Team Rocket in some way, but he was thinking that he didn't want to do it anymore, and so Ash's job was to go and get him and drag him before Giovanni, and then beat him with a whip. And Ash didn't want to do that, but it was either that guy gets whipped or Ash gets whipped. And after a long time of begging and pleading, Ash reluctantly takes the whip and he whips this kid. And boy, he feels terrible about that afterwards. You know, stuck between a rocket and a hard place. That was a terrible pun. Sorry. Anyway, so he's afraid through all this time that Misty is going to be disgusted at him and see him as an actual Team Rocket member at that point. Like, have the tentacles really seeped so deeply into him that he is now that thing, and it's impossible for him to be redeemed again? And he worries about that, but Misty, she doesn't see Ash as a Team Rocket member. She just sees a traumatized boy who is still recovering, and she and Brock do what they can to try getting the old Ash back. Like, they promise, look, this isn't going to be for a while, a long while perhaps, maybe years, but someday, when all this is over, let's have a Pokemon battle rematch. And sort of the old light of competitiveness once again comes out of Ash's eyes, but it's quickly dulled. But it was there for just a moment, so there's still some hope. Well, that gets quashed after one of the two Rockets could not wait long enough for Misty and Brock to just leave. Like, after a couple days, he's like, alright, screw it, you two get out of here. And Misty and Brock are like, whoa, what is this? We were allowed to stay here for a couple of days. We had that arrangement. And the guy's like, nope, no deal, get out. And it's quickly determined that this guy actually did want Ash because he is a prize among prizes, and if he's brought back to Giovanni, this dude is going to get promoted, he's going to get a huge pay bonus. Obviously, the boss's own son, his legacy, we can't... It's hard to fathom greater evil rewards than this. But Ash, who has been trained this whole time, like if you're going to be the boss's son, that does involve some sort of combat training. And while Ash is small and not very strong, he is extremely quick and he can take pain, and he also knows how to deal it out and what spots are the most vulnerable. And so while this guy has a gun, Ash manages to disarm him and just beat the pulp out of him. And shortly afterwards, the other Team Rocket member, Abby, the daughter of Mrs. R, she also holds those guys up with a gun. And it's at this point that Misty releases a Gyarados that she trained in order to overcome Abby and the gun. And while she is able to Hyper Beam Abby, Gyarados then gets shot, and Ash is afraid, oh god, Gyarados is Gyarados gonna die? And what if that had been somebody else? Like, in the end, Gyarados lives. It's a close shave, but Gyarados' scales are thick and tough enough that it's able to take one bullet. But what if next time? But what if... No. Ash has had it. He's seen the worst. He suspected it all along, and now that his suspicions have come to fruition, he is not willing to let a scenario like that happen again, where next time it's a Misty or Brock or Pikachu that gets shot, while the enemy is in the process of retrieving him. So, in the night, he does the only thing that he thinks will be a proper solution. He leaves without telling them. He goes back to Team Rocket. And Misty and Brock, they wake up in the morning and they're devastated. It's the same scenario all over again that it was from that first fateful morning. They wake up and Ash is gone. And it's made all the worse because they're paranoid that Ash is going to do something stupid, and so they've been sleeping lightly and just watching him. But because of the fatigue of the last couple of days, like there comes a time where your mind can only handle so much strain, and then it puts you out. And so Misty and even Pikachu were tired enough, and Ash was sneaky enough that he was able to slip out. And so when they go looking for him, he's only a few hours gone, but that's enough. He's able to put enough distance between them that it pretty much becomes hopeless. Like, well, he's gone again. And so, obviously, Misty is extremely torn and frustrated. And the only thing they can think to do at this point is contact Mrs. R again. Even though her two rocket sources in the safe house turned out to be a bust, Mrs. R herself, she had good intentions. Like, Kate Rearth writes it in such a way that it's obvious that Mrs. R actually was a good faith actor here. And when they do eventually get to Mrs. R again, she apologizes, and she says, look, I've got a contact in Team Rocket that's actually at the center base. So that guy will know if the search parties who have been out looking for Ash should suddenly find him. Like, if the search parties get withdrawn by Giovanni, that likely indicates that Ash has been found again. So, I'll give you the news. Not because I'm under obligation to, because remember, like, Mrs. R never did get her Team Rocket meeting places in the gym. But she's still helping just because she thinks she ought to. So, she may be evil, well, she may work for evil, but she does have a conscience. Let's see here. In the meantime, so Ash has been running, and he's able to find the Viridian City gym after some time of searching around. And so he goes in, and he just waits in the office. And it just so happens, it's one of those sort of fateful moments where after a few hours, when day breaks again, Giovanni actually is there. Like, Giovanni's never in one place for very long. Obviously, being a criminal boss, he has business in many different places. But it just so happens he has business in the Viridian Gym. And he shows up, and he sees, I think Ash broke a window in order to get in, and so Giovanni knows, like, okay, there's a break-in. I recognize this sneaking tactic. I taught this. So, Ash, I hope you didn't get any stains on my carpet. And Ash kind of comes out, gives himself up, and Giovanni, obviously very skeptical, Ash expects him to be. Like, so, you came back on your own. Might I ask the reason? And Ash, he tells him, and it's a bogus answer, but it's the best one he's got. You were right. You have been right all along. You said that if my friends saw me for what I am, they would never accept me. Well, I went back to them, and I know that you were watching me all along, and sure enough, they saw the Team Rocket in me, and they were disgusted, and I have no place in the world anymore. No place but here. So, Ash pretends like he's resigned. And the key word is pretends, because while Ash knows his life is more or less forfeit, he has not come back to Team Rocket without a plan. His plan is to eventually get deep enough into Giovanni's good graces to assassinate him. He's gonna kill him, because he knows that he's kicked off a series of events whenever he first knocked on Misty's door. All these people that he's been in contact with, his nearest and dearest relations, those are family and friends. And those are going to need cutting off. I mean, not just because they might blab to the world that Ash is actually alive, but also because with friends comes weakness. The tenderness of emotions makes you irrational, and you need to be cold and detached if you mean to be the head of such an organization as Team Rocket. And so, once you've cut those family ties, you can pretty much do anything else without regrets, because you have killed your feelings. So Ash knows it's only a matter of time before Giovanni makes a move on his family and friends. And so he's thinking, if I can just get at him first, like, I don't care about my life at this point. I know that I'm probably never going to make it out of this alive, but if I can save their lives, I've done enough evil in the world. Maybe I can do one more good thing. So that's his mindset, and until then, he's going to play the part that Giovanni intended for him. So, back to Misty and Brock. It's a long time in the waiting for them to determine if Ash has been taken back to Team Rocket Base, and in the meantime, Misty eventually procures a gun from Jesse and James. Like, wherever Jesse and James are always getting their weird equipment when they have their harebrained schemes to capture Pikachu, well, that's where Misty gets her pistol. And so, even one lesson of target practice is better than none, much better than none. Like, anybody who's ever held a gun and never shot it, they are not in the same league as somebody who's had just one day of training. So James trains her, she learns how to aim first before shooting, never aim at anything you don't intend to kill, etc. And she makes it back to Cerulean Gym. And I do mean makes it back, because only a little while after, her sister comes in and tells her, hey, there's some weird creepy guy who's just kind of skulking around outside. So Giovanni, who has been watching Ash up until the moment that he disappeared into Mrs. R's safe houses, he's now keeping an eye on the Cerulean Gym and the Pewter Gym and other places. He's got people there, and they're not doing anything yet. They're just sort of on standby, waiting for the order, whatever the order is. But, yeah, that's not good. So, Mrs. R tells Misty what she does not want to hear, which is stay put. You're a gym leader. Giovanni will potentially still kill you. However, it's riskier for him, because just killing some rando on the street, that's gonna make very small news, but killing an outright gym leader, that's pretty big news, and that puts a spotlight on Team Rocket, and Giovanni doesn't want that. So stay in your gym, it's the safest thing. Staying put while your friend could be being tortured in Team Rocket, yeah, that's bad. It's anxiety-inducing. I know you don't want to do it, but trust me, bro. I've been doing this for decades. I know what I'm about. And, Misty, being 14 years old, isn't buying that. She can't help it. Like, a night passes, and then she gets up. She goes out to where James is sort of still in the Team Rocket balloon, sleeping outside, watching the place, because if there's going to be evil Team Rocket goons out there, the least James can do is be a bodyguard in his own right. But she goes up to James and sort of gives him some emotional blackmail, like, what if it was Jessie, who was somewhere where you didn't know where, but you knew she was being tortured in the moment? Would you just sit still if you could do something about it? And so, James, who has seen the inside of Team Rocket HQ and knows how powerful his organization is, he's very hesitant, but Misty is also pretty convincing. And also James he is a diamond in the rough, like he's a criminal with a heart of gold. And so he does eventually succumb and say, all right, I'll take you. But Misty, who's going in half-cocked without a plan, James improvises as best he can. He provides a Team Rocket uniform for Misty to wear. He makes sure that they're able to use the Meowth balloon exactly as far as it can go. There's a certain point of no return where if they go any closer, then the guards at the base will come out and they will shoot. So they've got James's insider knowledge. He's been to the base a couple of times, so he's not really familiar with the place, but he provides a sort of rough map as to where stuff is. But once they've gotten there, it's around that time that Mrs. R calls again, knowing that, what? Misty's not at the gym? Damn it, I told her, days ago? If that, to stay put? So, what are you doing, stupid girl? Turn around, get back to the gym right now. James! For the love of God, be reasonable! But there is no changing Misty's mind. Like, at this point, it's do or die. And so, the last that Mrs. R will do, because she sees this as a suicide mission, is, look, if you're gonna go in anyway and get yourself killed, my contact who is in there, I will have him drive you at least into the parking garage, and that way the guards outside won't immediately shoot you dead. After that, I'm washing my hands of this. So, to a lesser extent, Mrs. R too is sort of a criminal with a heart of gold. I wouldn't say that necessarily because, due to all of her actions of erasing criminal records from the police department, she has certainly done more harm than good in this world. But in this particular instance, Mrs. R she's listening to her conscience. So they get in, and after a bunch of sort of fumbling and bumbling about, somehow they make it to the dungeons of this basement complex. And Misty gets to see firsthand just how utterly, I'm trying to think of a word, wretched the conditions are. Like, there is a stink of, like, sweat and not yet rot, but, as dilapidated as bodies can get without dying. And there are people who are starving in their cages, and there's just no light in their eyes, and they've been there for months, and you can smell the fear and the hopelessness, and it's like a scene out of hell, like sans fire, essentially. And so Misty gets an understanding of what Ash had to go through. One can think to themselves, Ash could have never given in. He could have stood by his principles to the end and suffered the torture and just been a hero, because that's what he's supposed to be, a hero, and not put other people in front of himself to protect himself from the whip. Like, I'll whip somebody else to deliver myself from the whip. How selfish of him. But this prison really hammers home just how terrible the torture gets. And now, as a bit of a skeptical reader, I think to myself, look, even James, who is a very low-ranking Team Rocket member, knows about this complex, and the prison is no secret, so how is it that there has not been some sort of sting operation on this place where the people who we elect to power in our society do something about this? Where the hell is the Elite Four? Where is the Kanto Police? Where are the people who are supposed to make society a place where innocent folks don't get put in criminal-made prisons, not for criminals to sit in, but for criminals to hold their, I don't know, their own prisoners, I guess. Anyway, it's just a corrupt society that's in this particular book. And you don't like to look at this sort of stuff. Like, you would rather believe that things are, they can get better. Like, you haven't properly seen corruption yet. Like, in our first world, you might see corruption, and it might be corruption, and it might lead to worse corruption, but there is some really bad stuff that goes on in the darkness. So, it almost... I'm trying to think of the word where it's like, you set aside your disbelief. And I can't think of the word right now, and it's bothering me. Whatever. The point is, it's difficult to believe, but I can see it. So, the sad thing is, Misty does eventually succeed in finding Ash in this base. But the thing is, even after the rescue operation is complete and they get left alone for basically the remainder of their lives, or the story ends on a somewhat positive note, but you know that this core of corruption in this society is still there. Like, they might have dealt a blow to Team Rocket, but the evil persists. And the evil will continue to persist until enough force of good people who can no longer tolerate the presence of the evil amass together and destroy the evil. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. It does tie back to the theme from the beginning, though. Like, evil succeeds unless good people act. And so, good people acting. This would be... switching back to Ash for a minute here. This would be Ash... doing what is... It's still not a good action, necessarily, to assassinate your own father, but given the context, like, if you don't kill Giovanni, Giovanni is going to continue to steal and kill and destroy. He's the head of it. He takes pleasure from it. Like, this is... He's just a force of evil in the world, and all Ash can do is kill him before being killed himself. There is no reshaping this for good afterwards. Like, somebody might argue, well, eventually Giovanni dies, and then Ash indeed takes his place as the head of Team Rocket, and then Ash could, like, make it better from the inside. Like, one of Ash's philosophies was that, acting as a Team Rocket member, he would do the bidding of Giovanni, but whereas somebody else would have kicked and beaten and even killed people if they didn't immediately cooperate with the Team Rocket agenda, Ash resolves to just firmly grab them and take them to where they need to be. Like, he knows that if he doesn't do this thing, somebody else will. So he might as well take their place and be the lesser evil. So, but there's no way... After a whole bunch more conditioning, like, if after 1 year, Ash was already in the state that he was, imagine, like, 5 years, 10 years of conditioning. Imagine being in Team Rocket, knowing nothing else but Team Rocket. How long does it take before your soul is just utterly distorted? If he's been alive on this earth for 13 years, and then 13 more years he spends in Team Rocket, like... when do you become a completely different person? this is a question that is not easily answered, and I don't know what the philosophical arguments are regarding this sort of stuff. But Ash knows that he's certainly on a time limit, and it is made plain to him when Giovanni calls him to his office and says, "All right, so I've been testing you these last couple of missions, but now that you've proven to be faithful, I didn't want to do this soon, but now comes the real trial. Your friend Misty, she's got to be silenced. And we all knew this was coming." And Ash is like, "But I came back on my own. Leave her alone. You said you were going to leave her alone. You said you wouldn't do anything." And Giovanni says, "Oh, I'm not going to do anything. You are. You can kill her, or somebody else can kill her. So I'll give you an hour to think it." Ash pleads for an hour, by the way. Giovanni doesn't grant him the hour initially, but given the circumstances, like, this is the only concession Giovanni is willing to make. Like, you have an hour to get used to the idea of killing Misty, and if it's you, then at least it can be painless. But she's gonna die at this point, so take an hour to think about whether it's gonna be by your gentle hand or somebody else's. And if you disappoint me in this matter, well, you know what happens when you disappoint me. So Ash has an hour in his room, and all he can think about is, okay, I gotta kill Giovanni. How do I go about doing this? And he's noticed there's been times where Giovanni will have, like, this paper knife on his desk that he uses to open envelopes and whatnot. No other weapons, though. Nothing within immediate reach. And always there are these two guards who guide him into the office at the end of a mission, and his ever-loyal Persian, his attack cat. Attack tiger, if you will. So, obviously, it's never mentioned, but certainly a Giovanni's got to have, like, a sidearm or something. So, in the heart of darkness, in Giovanni's very office, he is very well protected. So, all Ash can think is, I'm gonna die, but if I can at least use something to kill Giovanni before he has a second to kill me, that critical second is all I need. So, I gotta find that opening, and I needed more time to get Giovanni to trust me, but I'm out of time. At this point, Misty's about to die, so it's now or never. So the hour expires, Ash gets called to Giovanni's office, he says he'll do it, and he's able to put on a pretty good poker face. And so at that point, there's a call on the radio that the two guards, they receive notice that James, or somebody, it's James, is causing problems down in the parking garage. Like, he's set a fire, he set a bunch of Pokemon loose, they're having a hard time containing it, and Giovanni decides that he's going to use this opportunity to dismiss these two guards who are normally with him as a show of trust in his soon-to-be, doggone it, the word escaped me. Whatever. His son who will eventually take over Team Rocket. His progeny. So they leave. Persian's still there, but it doesn't matter. Ash is committed at this point, and so Giovanni says, "Here, come over here, let me have a closer look at you." And there's the opening. Ash grabs the paper knife, brings it into Giovanni's throat. I was about to say across his throat, but a paper knife can't cut, really. It can only stab. So he stabs the paper knife into Giovanni's neck, and a second later, Persian's on him. But it's enough. And Giovanni, who is utterly caught off guard by this, still immediately retains the wits to say Persian down. Though, it's clear that the knife has done its work. Giovanni's dying. He gets, like, 1 more minute of life to get one last little jab in at Ash about how he once killed his mother. Like, Giovanni, before he was head of Team Rocket, he was an executive. His mother was in charge of Team Rocket. And it's very heavily implied that Giovanni killed his mother in order to take her place at the head of Team Rocket. She was becoming weak, and Giovanni, he had to get Team Rocket back on the right track. So now, Ash has followed in his footsteps perfectly. So, even with his dying breath, Giovanni uses this as a proof that Ash is just like him after all. And Ash is, like, reeling. He is right on the verge of being like, okay, that's it. My soul is lost. Like, I killed my father, and I've killed my soul with it. But it's right then that Misty comes in and finds Ash, just kneeling on the floor at the recent corpse of his father. And because just before Giovanni died, he told Persian down, no, don't attack Ash. And so Persian is just sitting by his side, growling, but not attacking. And so Misty tells Ash, here, come on, we gotta go. And Ash obviously isn't reacting at all, except that he wants Misty to leave. Like, look, I'm already beyond redemption, salvation. You don't need to suffer this fate too. Leave me. And Misty plops down right there. She's like, I went through all this trouble to get you. If you're not leaving, I'm not leaving either. And at that point, Ash is like, oh, okay, fine, come on, let's go then. So he drags Misty out, and just before they make it to the exit, because James has been a real MVP in causing a distraction in the Team Rocket HQ. Like, there is panic everywhere. Like, I don't know what he did to cause this much of the fire and Pokemon releasing, but somehow he was able to make a huge diversion to the point that like a third of the team is essentially in chaos right now, running around, confusion and whatnot. But in spite of that, there are 3 Rockets who manage to jump Ash and Misty as they're leaving. And Misty, who still has that pistol, is eventually forced to shoot and kill 2 of them. So, she and Ash are effectively in the same boat at this point. Ash is a killer, she's a killer, and she uses this logic to her advantage in the moment. She says, look, Ash, if you think you deserve to die for this self-defense, then I deserve to die too. So do I deserve to die? Huh? And she puts the pistol in Ash's hand, and she's like, then shoot me. If I deserve to die because you deserve to die, then shoot me. And Ash can't bring himself to do it. Like, this is his friend, Misty. Like, she's the one who's been helping him all along. And so, once it's resolved in that moment that, okay, if I don't deserve to die, neither do you, let's get out of here, they leave. And they leave the Team Rocket HQ in utter chaos. So, like I said, while they dealt a blow, 2-3 people can only do so much to this organization that's been here for decades, perhaps centuries, destroying the lives of the Kanto civilians, stealing and killing, etc. Like, you see the least of Team Rocket in the games. All they're doing is going to Mount Moon and being a bother and taking the stones all for themselves, and sometimes they'll smuggle Pokemon underneath a game corner, but you don't really see Team Rocket do a bunch of murdering, do you? Or keeping people, innocent people, in cages. It's just... So, Team Rocket is not done. They're crippled, but they are still around. It's gonna take more than this. But they've done about as much as they could have done. Like, there was very little more that Misty and James and Ash could have done, besides, like, killing the boss and causing this major distraction and all this chaos in the Rocket HQ. So they leave, they're able to sort of finally talk through their feelings, and when Mrs. R finally contacts Misty again for the last time, she's grateful. She says that, alright, so with Giovanni dead, there's now an opening on the Iron Throne for a new, different boss. So they're gonna leave Ash alone, and by the way, that bastard who's been blackmailing me, with him dead, now I've got a way out of Team Rocket, and so all's well that ends well for our immediate heroes. Other people may continue to suffer, but Ash, Misty, Mrs. R, but mainly Ash and Misty, have taken about as much as they can possibly take. So all they can do now is sort of rest and recover. And with Giovanni's death dies also the psychological operation that Ash was also dead. Not psychological operation, the conspiracy, I should say. Because who cares if the boss's son is not dead after all? The boss is dead. Long live the new boss. Long live the new asshole who was rubbing his hands together just waiting for the old asshole to die first. So, at least they're leaving Ash alone now. So he goes to Pallet Town for a second time, and he's able to finally reveal himself in public to be not dead, and everybody is just really surprised to see him, and Gary, who actually won a Pokemon championship, but then gave it up because he said that he suspected Ash could have beaten him. He's just standing there open-mouthed. He gets in like one word. Like, Gary's always known for his snide remarks and always having a comeback, and not this time. Like, grief has changed Gary a bit. And speaking of grief, by the way, and recovering from it, Ash later on is once again by himself in his bedroom. Misty comes up to comfort him. She herself is not okay either. Like, she recently killed 2 Team Rocket members, and, I mean, they were gonna kill her and Ash if they didn't. Like, this was absolutely justified self-defense, but, you know, you kill somebody, that is going to mess with your soul. So she gives Ash this piece of advice that Mrs. Ketchum actually gave her at one point in her year of grieving and getting past the loss of Ash, which is, so a piece of glass, if you try to hold on to it, it's gonna cut you. But in the ocean, that piece of glass will, over time, smooth around the sharp points. There will come a time where you're able to hold that piece of glass, and time has smoothed it, and it will no longer cut you. So, even painful memories will be endurable at some point, and in the meantime, it's okay to not be okay. That's probably another pretty big takeaway from this story. Like, knowing that there's going to be times where you're not going to be okay, and at that point, it's like, all right, you know that you're not okay, and don't feel like you have to, I mean, you're still going to want to continue living your life, but if you find yourself grieving, if you find yourself, like, shaken to the core and weak, and thinking to yourself, this isn't me, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you is something natural, and so it's fine to acknowledge it. It will get better. So, anyway, it's a nice takeaway from the story, and like I said, afterwards, after a few more months and Ash getting the necessary documents together to prove that he's not dead and get his Pokemon license back on track and getting back onto his journey after so long. After all that stuff has happened, he's almost good again. And there's one last acknowledgement that there's still going to be tough times when they remember all this trauma that they went through, but ultimately they'll be all right. So it's a nice ending to this story, though there is still that bitterness that the evil of Team Rocket remains. They were thrown into chaos, but the bad people who made up Team Rocket don't just cease to exist. They are still there. They've established a practice. They know what works. They've adapted. They will be back. There's a quote from J.R.R. Tolkien. Whenever evil is defeated, after a respite, it takes a new shape and grows again. I think that's something I'll be using at some point in something else, but Team Rocket's not defeated, and there are many other organizations in the world than just Team Rocket. You know, Team Rocket is just an archetype. There's all the Team Rockets all over the place. They go by different names, they operate under different agendas, but they're there. So, knowing that they're there and giving people a sort of consciousness that the Team Rockets of the world are out there is my main reason for liking Returning Home. There are other main reasons to like it that other people will call their main reasons, but for me at least, evil succeeds unless good people act. So the key word there is act. Misty really should not have made it through the Team Rocket base, but somehow she and James, through luck and circumstance, but mostly luck, they were able to do something by their actions. So, you know, may more good people get together and act and bring evil down. Alright, boy, I've talked for a long time. that's going to do it for this story. I'm not sure what the next one up is, but future me knows. So, hey, thank you guys for listening along. You didn't have to. You could be listening to anyone, and I'm gratified to know that you chose me.